Murder convicts can be among the most lethal of all criminals. Imagine being told that your life will now be confined to a 4x6 prison cell, or worse, that you will be executed soon. One is bound to feel guilty. However, that is not the scene with most psychopaths. A child's mind is vivacious, but is it vivacious enough to kill? Have you ever considered how unexpectedly a teenage murder convict can react? Let's look at the most disturbing reactions of teenage convicts getting life sentences. Let's begin. Number 1. John Freeman. Mr. Freeman was an American teenager aged 16. Isabella M. Tennant's father called John R. Freeman Jr. a disgusting animal, as Freeman was sentenced to 22 years to life in prison for killing the 5-year-old girl in her great-grandparents' Niagara Falls home. When Niagara Falls police questioned Murphy, Freeman was calm, cool and collected, as pleasant as he could be with the detectives. He described in cold detail how he murdered a defenseless 5-year-old girl with his bare hands. According to police, Freeman told them that Isabella refused to sleep and ended up killing her. Another accused participated in the crime as an accessory after the fact. He claimed to have been threatened by Freeman and had to wind the girl up in a garbage bag and dump her in a trash can. Freeman was born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder caused by his mother's drinking habit while pregnant with him. The medical examiner determined that Freeman's disorder hampered his decision-making abilities, but not to the extent that a mental health defense could have succeeded. Before handing down a life sentence, the judge said, "You crushed her life with no more thought than someone might crush a butterfly," the deputy district attorney stated. Unequivocally, the she hopes Freeman is never released on parole. In court, Freeman expressed regret. "I'm so sorry for the whole family," he sobbed as he approached the girl's relatives. "I sincerely apologise. I'm at a loss for words." Number 2. Jennifer Mee. She was arrested in the Pinellas County Justice Center at the age of 19 on charges of first-degree murder, but this wasn't the first time she drew public attention. She was 15 years old when she gained international fame when she developed uncontrollable hiccups. She was dubbed the Hiccup Girl at the time, but that all ended when her hiccups were cured and the media lost interest in her until she was arrested. She allegedly enlisted the help of her boyfriend at the time, Lamont Noon, and another friend, Lauren Rafer, to rob people. She met with a 22-year-old man she met online, lured him to a vacant house, and her 2 friends robbed and shot him to death. Rayford and Newton were all arrested within hours of the crime. She admitted to her involvement in a phone call with her mother, which was recorded. "I got charged for a first-degree murder," she said in the phone call. She admitted to having assisted in the setup and that everything went wrong. The jury returned a guilty verdict and the defendant was found guilty of first-degree murder. Punishment serves as a mechanism to avenge those who cause harm to society and to correct such lawbreakers. However, simply being found guilty does not absolve a convict of his fundamental rights. Whether or not the individual is imprisoned, he is human with inherent rights. Many argue that the dramatic increase in life sentences has resulted in 1 out of every 7 prisoners serving a highly regretful sentence. It tarnishes society even more when a teenager is sentenced to life in prison. Number 3. Michael. May 11th, 1993 was the date when Michael murdered 2 young women. He was only 17 years old. According to his mother, Michael's psychiatrist had given up on him by the time he was 11 years old. Michael, who is 17 then, travelled from Minnesota to Iowa to rob a store. Vicky Bauman Hall, an unarmed store clerk, was killed there. At this point, Michael was on a godless rampage. The adolescent then went on to another Iowa county and shot innocent store clerk Shayla Myers. Michael smirked and described Shayla Myers' half-gasp, half-scream as he pulled the trigger. It gave him a sense of power, he admitted. Michael greeted the officer who was part of the team that arrested him casually. After his lawyers failed to persuade the court that he was suffering from a mental illness, he was asked how he felt after the shooting. A doctor who says in his report that if he isn't given antipsychotic medication, he'll rob people, use weapons, and commit violent acts. Regardless, he was released without medication. As the sentence was read, Michael was seen smiling and laughing. This is not the behaviour of someone whose life is on the verge of ending. According to Michael's twisted logic, killing someone is equivalent to pouring a bucket of water on someone entering a pool. He meant that people would die regardless of age, whether 80 or 30. While incarcerated, Michael attempted to murder another inmate. Despite his survival, the inmate required stitches to close over 13 lacerations on his body. For his attempted murder, Michael was sentenced to an additional 25 years in prison. Number 4. Thomas. The The adolescent was accused of murdering 3 students and shooting 2 others. Thomas Michael was responsible for the tragic shooting at Chardon High School in Ohio in February 2012. In the 3rd week of September 1994, Thomas was born. He was 17 years old when he murdered 3 students and injured several others with a .22 caliber handgun. Thomas began shooting at random students in the cafeteria around 7:30 a.m. Before fleeing, he shot 5 male students and 1 female student. Frank Hall, a school coach, pursued and subdued him with the assistance of Josen Rizzi, a teacher at the school. The injured students were taken to the hospital, but 3 of them died. Lane was arrested and his trial began almost immediately. He was found to be guilty, however his behaviour and complete hatred for humans as portrayed in court caused quite a stir. Weeks before murdering his classmates, Thomas posted on his Facebook page about killing some people. Nobody took the warning seriously because there was no mention of a location. He wore a sweatshirt with the word killer emblazoned on it to school on the day of the murders. During his trial, he displayed the sick sense of humour by wearing a white shirt with the word killer scrawled on it. He described how he disrespectfully murdered his victims, mocked their families and gave them the middle finger. That is correct. This unsettling reaction will haunt you for the rest of your life. He treated the entire trial as a farce, laughing and cursing the court as he was sentenced to 3 life sentences, 1 for each student he murdered. In September 2014, Thomas and 2 other inmates escaped from Allen Correctional Institution in Lima, Ohio. Thomas and his associates were apprehended less than 24 hours after Chardon High School had been closed as a precaution. Thomas is now incarcerated at the maximum security Warren Correctional Institution in Youngstown, Ohio. He will serve the rest of his sentence in complete confinement and isolation until his name is called to face the most severe penalty in the legal system, judicial execution. Number 5. Lindsay Robert Rose. Lindsay Rose's story is quite intriguing. He committed his first murder when he was 14 years old, killing a businessman, his girlfriend, and an eyewitness out of vengeance. Rose broke into wealthy businessman William Bill Graff's West Ryde home to commit a burglary. Raynette Holford surprised him on the premises 2 years later. Rose stabbed Holford repeatedly with a screwdriver and a vegetable knife. He then bound her up and fled, and Holford died due to her injuries. The teen, dead to rights, amusedly smiled and nodded his head while the victim and the others testified. The judge, fed up with and agitated by this threat, requested that the sentence settlement be overturned and the case be tried. Lindsay was then sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. The 17-year-old's disrespectful attitude towards the court and the victim's family demonstrated his lack of remorse. Number 6. Desmond Jones. Desmond Jones was sentenced as one of 4 men charged in 2017 with kidnapping and murdering a 13-year-old girl. Authorities believe Randall was killed in June 2017 in retaliation for a cocaine deal that turned into a robbery. Despite the fact that 4 people have been charged, her body was discovered 4 days later. No one has been charged with murder in this case. The first witness during the punishment phase of the trial was Randall's family member, who gave heartbreaking emotional testimony about their life after Randall's murder. Jones began an adamant argument with someone in the gallery, which agitated the situation in the courtroom. He became so agitated that the court had to yell at Jones to sit down and order him to leave the courtroom, while several officers promptly arrested Jones and hauled him out. He was transferred to a holding area where he could observe the remainder of the punishment phase of the trial. No new witnesses were called, and the attorneys delivering their closing arguments, pleading with the jury to sentence them to 20 years in prison. While those were the chilling crimes committed by young boys and girls whom we expect to be at school learning things and making the world and their parents proud, what do you think could have turned the society this way? Leave a comment, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more such videos.